celebrating 10 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Mike West.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. We are celebrating 10 years of possibility. These are great stories about great people who prove with and through their lives that anything is possible. This is Mike West. Welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So when I'm sitting in your office, kind of looking at the river from your office, I asked you a question. I said, did you have any idea that your life would turn out like this? And you were like, not exactly.
No, I think it's hard to imagine when you're growing up what your life's going to be like. And I didn't grow up in a privileged environment, and I sort of thought everyone lived like me. And then things just start happening, and your life evolves. And next thing you know, you're moving at a faster pace, and then you're in an office looking at the river, I guess.
I love the way you just summarized that. You're moving at a faster pace,
right.
Looking at the river. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Knoxville. Spent the first half of my life right across the street from West High School. And then we moved out to Farragut when I was sort of 10 years old, and that was when Farragut was the farmers. Bearden High School used to call Farragut the farmers,
right? Because
they were the farmers. And when I moved out there wasn't much out there, and I grew up and went to high school at Farragut, and then went to UT.
Right. So you were very wealthy, come from a very wealthy family.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. You had a trust fund waiting on
Absolutely.
you of about
like everyone
$2.4
else,
billion. Yeah.
Like everyone else on Windsor Avenue. Everyone else on Windsor.
What was your life like?
It was like I think most people. I played sports. I was outside all the time. There wasn't anything to worry about.
Did you feel exceptional though? Did you?
No, I still don't. I don't know. I just felt like anybody else. My parents didn't go to college.
What'd they do?
My mom was always sort of a secretary, administrative type person. My dad was in sales. He worked at a Firestone, and then he worked in furniture, and they were great parents. They raised us in an environment that was warm and loving, and we were happy. Vacation for us was a Tennessee football game, and every once in a while we'd go down to Georgia for 1 week, and it was just a happy
regular
life.
Living.
It was just living the way I thought everyone else did.
Now you played on UT's football team.
I did. I wasn't very good.
All right, so tell me how you ended up on UT's football team.
Well, I played high school football, and I always wanted to play football, and I always wanted to play at UT, but I didn't think I was really good enough. And then I stumbled into this situation where you could be a long snapper, right?
Right.
Which is a great job. Now, I will tell you that it's the most stressful thing I've ever done. Okay, business now seems so much easier because that was scary. That was scary to be in a situation where if you do your job, no one knows who you are. If you mess up, everyone will know you forever, right?
Right.
So it was scary, but it wasn't hard. It wasn't like it required an enormous amount of talent or anything.
But you met a great coach.
I did meet a great coach. A lot of great mentors.
And what did he think of you?
Well, I don't know what he thought of me then. He tells people now that I tried really hard. I think that means, he told me one time that he thought I was really coachable. And before I could tell him thank you, he said, which means you don't have that much talent, but we appreciate the effort anyway. And he was being funny. But, the great thing about growing up with someone who is a mentor like that is they do define how you think about things. And great mentors should push you. And he pushed me hard from the very beginning. He probably knew that I wasn't there on talent. I was there on something else. And so he laid into me constantly. I told him recently he should be glad I don't talk to him the way he talked to me, because he was he's pretty hard on me. But you know what? That was invaluable.
Because it helped to shape you. It
did. It showed me that things were possible. It showed me that I didn't need to think about my life in a box. And if somebody like me could just sort of come out of nowhere and end up on that stage, then it was possible to do other things. And he was, he wasn't trying to help me in later life at that moment, but that's what he was doing.
Wow. My guest is Mike West. The he in this conversation is Coach Phillip Fulmer. And when we come back, you're going to hear the next layer of this story, because the summary you heard at the beginning of our conversation, I went to UT and ended up in an office by the river. He left out a lot of important details when it comes to possibility. I want you to hear the rest of this story of possibility coming up. We'll be right back.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
I think that CEOs should make the decision that's best for the shareholders. I don't think they do that, but I think they should.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. My guest this week is Mike West. So you go to UT, you're the long snapper, you are coached by Phillip Fulmer, and you said that he really pushed you, and by pushing you, he revealed to you possibility. Yeah,
I think he did. I think that, when you're faced with challenges and you find a way through those challenges, makes you stronger, makes you start to think more of what is out there and what you can do. And, I think that's part of the process. It's part of growing, right? I think that, sort of getting knocked on your keister every once in a while is a good thing.
Yeah.
And having someone there to remind you how you got knocked on your keister and then to help you up is a great thing. And I sort of think that's kind of the process, right? And so, you just sort of move along, and next thing you know, you're starting to believe other things can happen. Started taking my education more seriously. In my freshman year, I wasn't real serious about academics.
So what happened after you graduated from UT?
Well, I met my wife, Tiffany, at UT.
Right.
She had a big impact on me, too, academically. We got married while we were seniors in college, and then I went to work for a big pharmaceutical company. Like a lot of people in that area, everybody wanted to go work for a big company. So I went to work for a big pharmaceutical company, moved to Georgia, and started doing my thing, and enjoyed it, but it was not quite for me. I spent 4 years working for a large company, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the interaction and the training, but there was just something missing, and so that was the first stage. Had my daughter Ashley down in Georgia, and then we moved off to Birmingham and had Thomas.
What happened in Birmingham?
Well, one day I was working at UAB Hospital, and the head of cardiology came in, Dr. Pohos came in, and he said, I want you to do something. And I said, okay. And he said, managed care is a scary thing. This was back in the early 90s, and it's going to have a big impact on teaching hospitals. I want you to quit your job, and I want to give you some money, and I want you to go start something for me. And I said, okay. Had a, two babies at home. I said, okay. And I quit. And didn't really know what he wanted. And I just knew that it sounded exciting, it sounded interesting, it sounded different, and it was time for me to sort of step out.
Right.
And so I did.
So what did you guys create together?
We created, in very quick order, we created an organization that was designed to allow the teaching hospitals to contract with the managed care companies. So if you needed a valve replacement, you would go to Barnes-Jewish, or if you needed a heart transplant, you'd go to Cleveland Clinic. We signed up the top 10 academic centers in the U.S., created this consortium, and started doing contracts. I was age 25. I was so in over my head.
What became of that company?
It just grew it got to a point, Halloran, that it was too big for me. And I was aware that it was too big for me. And I went to the board and said, look, guys, I love what I do and I love what you're doing for me, but you need to bring in some adult supervision to run this company. And so they did. They brought in someone, and the company went on and did contracts and had success. And that was my first time stepping out.
You fired yourself?
Yeah. Well,
that.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
You fired yourself,
yeah, right? I've done that.
So you're in over your head. You realize you're not good enough for that moment.
Right, yeah.
Just like in football, you're like, I'm okay, but I'm not the guy. But there's some learning that's supposed to take place here. And you fire yourself and you move on.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Well, then it was on. I'm starting companies. So I started another company, sold that company, started another company, sold that company. And those were really transitional companies. And then in '98, sort of the big event happened for that decade. I was driving back from South Carolina listening to NPR, and they were talking about this thing called the internet, right? And today that's hard to believe that, because it's so pervasive, but at the time it was new to people.
Right.
And I kept thinking, I ought to be able to come up with something I could do on the internet. Surely I could do something. My dad sold furniture, as I mentioned, and I sold furniture. I grew up around furniture, and I started thinking about, I bet I could do something with furniture on the internet. And so I started a company in August of '98 called HomePoint. The company was designed to connect manufacturers and retailers across the internet. We raised $73 million in 9 months. It was crazy. I mean, it was insane. And I went from this, this guy who had run companies to now running this internet company in this incredibly fast world that we were living in. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen. I mean,
that company grew to what?
Well, it was like a lot of internet companies. There's a difference between what its revenue was and its value.
Right.
We grew to about $6 million in revenue, which is
right.
a really relatively small company, but we were valued about $350 million in January of 2010. So in 15 months, we got to about $350 million in value.
And you sold the company?
I sold my part of the company.
For?
A good time. A good time. That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
I sold it because, it was in the spring of. It's another example of sort of how I've lived my life, I guess. The company was wanted to go public,
right? And
that was the thing to do. I was 31, 32 years old, something like that, and I just didn't think I was ready to run a public company.
Look at that.
I just didn't think that was the thing. I just wasn't ready for it.
How could you be so real with yourself about not being ready as you're running multi-million-dollar companies? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most people, that's a reason for pride or arrogance or hubris. They go, I am the man. And here's the money to prove it.
Well, I guess what it is when I was playing football, it was obvious to me that there was always somebody bigger, faster, stronger. And so you sort of, I think it's really healthy to realize that you're not the end all for everything. And so, I figured out pretty quickly when I was at UT that there was somebody who was bigger, faster, stronger, better athlete, whatever. And it's just sort of followed me through life. You get to a point at HomePoint, and I'm thinking, this company's going to go public. I've never done that. The investors have made big bets on this company, big valuation. This is going to require a very experienced CEO. And I'm not a very experienced CEO at this point. And, I think that CEOs should make the decision that's best for the shareholders.
Wow.
I don't think they do that, but I think they should.
Let's take a break. When we come back, you go from that to being in the investment world. This story is really incredible. It is a story of possibility, but I just found one other hook that I don't think I've ever discovered with any other guest on this program. You'll hear what that is coming up. You're watching Anything is Possible.
Coming up.
And he said, no, you don't understand. I used to have to beat Georgia, Florida, Alabama. Who do we got to beat? I said, we'll find somebody and we'll go after him. He said, that's what I need. The mistake was I thought he'd come out and he would just sort of decompress. And he came out and said, where's the game? I'm in it.
Mike West, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
This is Anything is Possible. This is the thing that I don't think I've ever had a guest lay out their life story the way you're laying yours out. You're getting to important inflection points in your life, and you are being ruthlessly honest with yourself about what's possible and what at that point is impossible.
Right.
In fact, you're allowing what's not possible to kind of manage the direction of your life. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I probably didn't think about it that way, but I always had a sense of where I was.
Chess. Yeah. Here's the move.
Yeah.
If I move here, I'm going to get.
Yeah.
So you're 31, 32.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But at this point, and I don't know a lot about mathematics, but if the company was $300-some million and you had a piece of it and you got in it early on, let's just say you're a millionaire at 31.
Yeah, things have gone well in my life. Things have gone well. Yeah, you know, the other thing about that is this. I didn't grow up with money, and I like my life, and I always have. And so I never really, my kids were really young, and Tiffany and I talked about if we go out and become all that, what are they going to be? So we just lived our life like we'd always lived it. I mean, it really
so you didn't change up.
No,
anything.
I mean, it didn't.
But you got a ton of money.
Well, I mean, I was comfortable. So
yeah,
I mean,
I love the way you're saying
yeah,
that.
I mean,
you're very, how shall we say, discreet. But once again, and this is something that I think is pervasive in all possibility people, they have this insatiable desire to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
And their perspective on challenge is opportunity. So when you put something in front of them, for a person that is not possibility driven, they see a challenge, a crisis. A person that is possibility minded sees possibility.
Right.
And they figure there's something you have to learn. So interesting thing about your story is, no, I like that. I like my Freudian slip. Your study, your life study is, okay, I got all this money. I don't want to see it go away. I don't need to just hand it to somebody to manage. I need to figure out how to take care of what I've been blessed with.
Right. Well, and that was I guess the next step in the story is, now what do I do? Right. And I didn't, at that point in my life, I didn't have a lot of investment background. So it wasn't like I was going to be able to individually do that. It was more along the lines of, how do I trust someone or some entity with what has happened? And the answer to that was, in an odd way, I would only trust what I built as opposed to going and hiring someone. So we built an organization to manage my wife and I's assets. And that's really what we set out to do. We didn't have clients or a purpose, or the purpose was, okay, let's create a concept of what we believe in, what are our core values, and how we want to think about things. And then let's manage to that, and let's build the team to do that. And so that's what we did.
What are those core values?
Well, sometimes, I'm a lot more boring than people probably think I am. Sometimes I get this, there's this persona that I'm aggressive, and I guess that's because I've started so many companies. Pretty conservative guy. I believe in doing the work. I believe in discipline. I believe in paying the price and doing the things that you have to do to sort of get there. So our investment philosophy and strategy was always tied to that. I had an expression early on, which was, it was hard to make this money. I don't want to have to do it again. I don't want to do it again. So, which is a backhanded way of saying, let's not lose any money here. Let's keep what we have. And so our mindset was about wealth preservation, about being true to the belief that you don't have to hit a grand slam home run every day. Sometimes bunt singles are just an effective way to win a ball game. And so that was our mindset. Stay disciplined, stay true to who we are, stay quiet, stay discreet, stay under the radar. Those kinds of things were sort of the things that we believed in.
So now people start coming to you and saying, wait a minute, you're doing a great job managing your resources. Can you help me with mine? Which has grown into kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Tell me about the company now.
Yeah, it really has evolved far more than has been thought out. We did, when we moved back to Knoxville and when Coach Fulmer joined the firm, my goal was to stay under the radar. That didn't work out very well. You hire Coach Fulmer, and I don't know what in the world I was thinking about staying under the radar. But Coach Fulmer joins the firm, and people did start asking those questions. And so essentially what has happened is, at first I said, I'm not interested in having outside investors. And then I started thinking about what's available to them and what we did. And maybe there was some value there. And, maybe we could make some business out of that and have a good time doing it. So we registered with the SEC as a registered investment advisor. And then in last spring, we launched 2 publicly listed, NASDAQ listed mutual funds. So we've come all the way from completely tied into just our assets to now somebody in Portland, Oregon can log on and buy our mutual funds.
Talk about Coach Fulmer. He gets canned at UT.
Yeah.
They fire him. Bye.
That was a good decision, wasn't it?
You hire him. Why?
Well, You know, Coach Fulmer and I we were close. We were not close like lots of people were close. And what I mean by that is we talked for years, but we never talked about sports. We never talked about football. We never talked about the things that people wanted to talk to him about. We talked about leadership. We talked about business, decision making. We talked about those kinds of things. So I understood where he was. I did not offer him a position as a partner for any other reason other than to give him a place to go and think about what he wanted to do. It never occurred. I get credit for this great business development hire. We didn't have anything to sell when he showed up, so that's not a particularly good hire, right? I want him to come in the firm and sort of get away from it all.
What would make you want to make that investment, though? What would make you want to go, man, that's a great guy. I'm just going to give him safe harbor.
Well, I understood where he was, and I understood the noise that was around him, and I understood what was happening, and I wanted to be there for him to make sure that he had a place that he could get rid of the noise and do whatever he wanted to do. If he wanted, you know, he didn't choose to coach again, right? He didn't choose to do that. But if he wanted to, I wanted him to be able to think about that without the noise. He did a great service to me 25 years ago, right? I mean, he took a kid that didn't have very much talent, and he threw him into the mix, and he tried to make him into a man. And he was a big part of that. So the least I could do on the backside of that and say, come on out to the office and hang out a little bit, and let's see what happens. Now, the mistake was his second day there. He comes in, and he's pacing around, and he's got this look on his face. I said, what's wrong? He said, who's our competition? And I said, well, Coach, we're a family office. We don't really have competition. He said, no, you don't understand. I used to have to beat Georgia, Florida, Alabama. Who do we got to beat? I said, we'll find somebody and we'll go after him. He said, that's what I need. The mistake was I thought he'd come out and he would just sort of decompress. And he came out and said, where's the game? I'm in it. And then it's, you know, he's been there 3 years, and that's just sort of the way it's been.
Wow. What a story of possibility. And I think your perspective is really what gives your life possibility. Thanks for sharing that.
No, thank you for having me.
I really like hanging out with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll always, you know, one day, should I be blessed to go further financially, I'm going to always remember just to chuckle and say we've done well. I like that. I've taken that from you.
Thank you.
I will use that. I think that is delightful. That and Barry Manilow.
Yes, well, that's an inside story.
Mike West, thanks for coming by.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll see you next time on Anything is Possible.